IVM. चट्टानों की चोटी में छिपा है एक लड़की का नाम। कई पहाड़ों को चढ़ने वाली एक लड़की की सुनेंगे आज हम दास्तान। She is fearless, passionate, adventurous, and an explorer. Popularly known as the Pahadi Girl, many brands would like her to be their ambassador. Someone who has tamed both rock and ice, and yes, that's a she. She is a climber, a mountaineer, a guide, and an inspiration, Prerna Dangi. So hello and welcome to Beyond Cliché. This is your host in Dostal, and this show is all about breaking gender stereotypes. I'm a speaker, author, coach, change maker, and I run a campaign where I'm asking a leading diaper company to include the father's image on the diaper wrapper. I am very passionate about ensuring that we don't have gender roles in the society anymore. And I think parents are parents. So why should we have only mothers changing diapers? If you believe in this cause, please go to my petition on www.change.org/PapaPampers2. Well, today is all about adventure. And, I have a 9-year-old son and he loves Dora the Explorer. So when I was doing research for this particular guest of mine, Dora was constantly in my head because she's probably just one of those adventurous role models that we have for kids. And I'm so glad we have girls like Prerna who are setting up to be role models for women who can actually climb mountains. I'm super excited about this one. We're going to have a conversation with someone who has actually done like really high mountain ranges. And I'm talking about rock and ice both. She's actually done the Alaskan range. And I think that's like so fascinating for us to talk about. She's a professional climber. She's an athlete. She's also a guide. She's the ambassador for Mishmi Tuckin, EcoFem, and many more brands. She's also the organizer and mentor for Climb Like a Woman, popularly known as CLAW, where there are women climbers trying to go on expeditions. And she is an inspiration just like her name. Joining us today in the virtual studio in this conversation on Beyond Cliché is Prerna Dangi. So Prerna, thank you for taking this time out. I know that you're actually heading off to another expedition this weekend, right? So we sort of just managed to get time. Where are you going?
I wouldn't call it an expedition. I'm actually just going to the mountains where my native home is. I'm going to visit my village. I'm going to try and explore the far eastern Uttarakhand ranges and go towards Kumaon, looking for potential rock climbs.
And is this like a solo thing that you're doing?
No, I have a partner who I'm going with. Yeah, I'm going with somebody. I go solo sometimes, not all the time. Climbing is something that you can't exactly do solo. So
right. So we're going to understand all of that. By the way, I'm a novice, okay? So I am a backpacker. I'm a solo backpacker, but pahad kabhi chade nahi. Also primarily because I have a bad knee. But I'm going to take like tips from you on whether is this a myth? Can I do it? I'm so excited. Yeah, I'd love to climb a mountain someday with you. So I'm looking forward to a conversation.
Excitement. Absolutely. I am such a grand introduction and I can see you jumping off so clearly.
नहीं, क्योंकि हम सुनते नहीं है ना. We don't hear about women climbing mountains. In fact, ये बोला जाता है, this is what is said that तुमको कौन सा पहाड़ चढ़ना है. This is normally the narrative that we have for girls. And, I had launched a petition where I'd asked the makers of this cartoon called Chhota Bheem to make this character Chutki a little less gender stereotypical because Chutki's mother is constantly telling her, you don't climb trees like Chhota Bheem. So this is actually told to girls. And your journey started with climbing trees, right? So from climbing trees in your village to walking the 110 kilometers from Spiti to Ladakh to climbing Alaska, let's understand your journey. Let's start with your childhood. Tell us where it all started with climbing trees.
Yeah, I think in my childhood, like you said, is where this urge to be outdoors and to find a sort of a play in the outdoors set in for me. I was born in Delhi, But
Mm-hmm.
every summer vacation, we spent our 2 months in my village.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember doing, everything. I mean, I was interacting with, and it's a proper village. It's off the road. A lot of my relatives, खेती करते हैं for a living.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just a दूर से देखा हुआ experience. It was something I really lived through. I played with these people, so all of whom are married now. Like all of my girlfriends from the village, you can say, they have kids, and there I interacted with my surroundings at a very intimate level.
Mm-hmm.
गाय चराना, घास काटने जाना, even though कभी दराती चलानी ढंग से आई नहीं, but पीछे पीछे लगे रहना. And what I saw there, I mean, the way the women work, and day and night, in the fields,
Mm-hmm.
the way everybody adapted to the environment, the simplicity of it, and the freedom, most
Mm.
importantly. There's what do you do? Like if I just had the entire village and all of the forests and the trees to play with. I
See,
think
I
that
called you.
that
I said, right? You remind me of Dora. So you're just sounding like that. I used to go to the village and I used to enjoy the environment and all of that. So this sounds very exciting. So did you have partners? Like, did you have other girls joining you? या आप अकेली Dora थी वहाँ पर? How was it? How
I
was
mean, of
your
course,
childhood?
like my village experience was, because it was something I did often. It wasn't alien to me. Wasn't
Mm.
like it was exploration on a personal level, but overall, it was something I did. Like लोग अपने घर जाते हैं और वो रहते हैं. So it was very normal for me, and I'm very fortunate that in my formative years I was given this upbringing where I could uh, engage with nature. So at that moment, I think it was just I did what everybody around me was doing, climbing trees
Yeah, but
to
were
get
girls?
sapal.
That's what I'm trying to understand. But was it common for girls to climb trees back then in your village?
Oh, yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, like the women do all of the work there.
Uh,
They climb everything. They climb from roofs. They have to climb the trees to get the leaves, to
ah.
get the branches, to get the fruits out. Everybody knows pretty much how to climb trees in the village. That's what I mean. Like it was a proper village lifestyle. So in that sense, in my village, I was definitely, initially like, or at some points, I felt like the outsider because
Hmm.
my experiences in the city were so different from here.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
growing up, I ended up relating more to the Pahadi culture that I had been brought up in. Even
Hmm.
in Delhi, I was growing up with Pahadi parents.
Hmm.
So that's how I think lineage and culture and tradition is passed on, right? So in my heart and soul, I was being brought up as a Pahadi.
Beautiful. So what you've spoken about is so interesting that there are women in this world and in our own country in villages. For them, climbing trees is a part of their job. That's something that they have to do, like you said, and it's so unheard of in the city life. It's not nomenclature to hear that women are climbing trees, but this is actually so normal. Iska matlab ye hai that women can climb trees because there is a section of women that's doing that, right? So that's where it started for you, and then there was a twist in your life where you actually went on an expedition with IMF, right, in Delhi, and it kind of sowed the seeds for you. So talk about
Right.
how did you think about it? Did you ever think that while you were growing up, I'll become a mountaineer, and it happened? What was that journey like?
Um, did I think that I was going to be a mountaineer? No, I definitely did not. I was studying for all sorts of things. I was kind of like into everything. I was this hyperactive kid. I was good at sports and I thoroughly enjoyed sports.
Mm-hmm.
So movement was something that I related closely
Right.
with, and it was something I was used to. I was well coordinated. I liked pushing myself. I liked the challenges from a very
Mm-hmm.
early age.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked the being on my feet a lot. I knew that, but I
Mm-hmm.
definitely did not think that I would end up professionally coming in this field
Mm-hmm.
because I simply did not know that it existed.
Ah, right.
Climbing is a very niche and a very young um, industry and even
Absolutely.
activity. So we just didn't meet enough people who were climbers. We didn't see it in on popular media and mainstream media that there was something like this. Of course, I saw it on Discovery Channel, and that's what it was. It was Discovery Channel stuff.
There are
where
some
there's like,
people in some parts of the world that do it,
yes,
I
exactly.
don't think I mean, mera unse kya connection is normally what a person would think, right?
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I used to sometimes be enamored by the wildlife photographers, but I don't know. I didn't. I mean, I guess I was still waiting for my calling of sorts. And I mean, I spent in from my hometown in Raniket, we can see like the entire Kumaon Himalayan range, and these are like the highest peaks in the country within India, and they're absolutely magnificent. I had not even the slightest idea that I would ever want to climb them. I loved
Mm.
looking at them, but I totally took them for granted. They were
Mm.
just mountains that added to the landscape for me. Whereas all these years later, the way I look at mountains is completely different. The way I even look at climbing a tree has become different, just
Right, I'm
because
sure.
now I have all of these ideas in my head about how I want to ascend something.
Right. So you're saying that you had never fathomed or imagined that you would actually do this, right? So that's a sense that I'm getting. But how did it actually happen? And what was your journey, especially because you're a woman, and it's not very natural for a woman to sort of think that I'm going to pick this up as a career. So how did this happen, and what were some stereotypes you had to encounter?
So I found out about climbing to exist as a sport
Mm-hmm.
in my college because we had a hiking club,
Mm-hmm.
and we also had an artificial climbing wall. So
Mm.
this was a physical representation of this sport, and one that I could actually literally do and be a part of. Club like it. So it kind of makes me understand that it really begins with a community of sorts. You always have need these people around you
Mm.
to start venturing into something that is so niche and something that does need that kind of support. Because who's going to teach you? It's not like if you. I mean, yeah, sure, YouTube videos, etc. They've all played a big part in my life of learning and getting better at climbing. But in the beginning, at the very basic level of it, you need somebody who's doing it. You need to see them do it, and you will know. Okay, this is how it's done. I want to do it too.
Right.
And I remember on the first day of my college standing in front of the wall, and that was that. I was just like, this sport is literally what I wanted to do. I realized that it was my calling from, just the first few times that I went on the wall. Just
Mm.
because I've always, as a sportsman also, and I was in the basketball team in college, but I always wanted to, the kind of the skills and strengths that basketball required.
Mm.
I wanted more than that. Not that I was like ace at basketball. I was, part of the team, and I wasn't the best player at all, but I still loved the movement, and yet I wanted something more. I wanted to be stronger in a different sense. I don't know. I didn't want to go to the gym and be like
Mm.
a gym person, but I
Mm.
wanted that kind of strength, and
Mm.
I didn't know where I wanted to use it. So when climbing came to me, it was the perfect combination of flexibility, of strength, of power, and all of the things and also thrill. Like I loved these kind of challenges where I would
Mm.
get scared, because
Mm.
I feel like my most rewarding moments were when I did something that scared me.
Mm. Mm.
So it was really that kind of propelled me to, into climbing. And then, of course, I went on to do my basic mountaineering course from Manali. There are these mountaineering institutes.
Before you went on to these courses, right, a decision was made कि मुझे ये करना है. This is what I want to do. At that point in time, what was really going on in your head? Did this ever cross your mind that I'm a woman? I don't know whether I should be doing this. Did you have any stereotypes that you encountered, any resistance from people around you, or was there support? What was the situation inside and outside?
I believe that when I started my climbing journey, which was in
Mm-hmm.
college, I did not instantly, in the initial period, I don't remember feeling like I wanted to do this and feeling more challenged because I was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Because this dynamic of like this realization that I'm a girl, this is
Mm-hmm.
something, and that I'm maybe at some points less um I get less opportunity than the guys around me. This was something that I started feeling way before in my school days. Because in sports, I would see it. I wanted to just I was this extra sporty girl, and there were the other girls. I had maybe, a couple of friends who were as into sports as I was. And I wanted to always do what the guys were doing. And, I always felt challenged to kind of beat them at, or to be at par with them. And that also led for me to believe that will make me better than the other girls. I mean, it's also something that we're so used to, right? As women, we're always used to not being at par with men, always being a few steps or more behind and being expected less of. And I really disliked this last bit where just because I was a girl, people assumed that I wouldn't be able to do something as well as the guy standing next to me. Right. But fortunately, in my college, my seniors were super supportive, and I slowly, eventually started to get out of college, and I joined the Indian Mountaineering Foundation climbing wall.
So, were there a lot of women at IMF? Did you see women climbing around you?
There were a few women. I definitely can count them on a single hand. So
what kind of a ratio are we talking about? How many men versus how many women?
5 women, actually more like 3 women and then 15, 20 guys. I feel that initially I didn't see this problem of there not being enough women because I liked the challenge that there were not enough women. I liked having an edge over other women. It kind of gave me, it was obviously like a misled sense of validation because of how we're brought up. And eventually I was like, oh my God, I'm missing such a big, community. I slowly, that's what I said, but initially didn't come about, but eventually when I wanted to get better and I asked and I looked at the guys around me and they were so different. They're, when we climb, we share the beta. Beta is how you do something, how you do a particular move. It makes you be able to successfully climb something. And when I was shared beta by guys, it wouldn't always work for me. Most of the times it would not work for me. So I would just have to I would have to solve the problem on my own. And I would, be able to get beta and I would be able to do the same movements that a woman was doing more naturally. So it was as simple as something that I wanted to be as strong as the next guy, except that I wasn't a guy.
That's an interesting point because obviously I want to know more about the technical aspects of mountaineering, and normally the thought is that ye mardo wale kaam hai. You need to have that physical strength that a man has to climb a mountain. So I don't know if it's a myth or a fact, and we're gonna get into a conversation deeper with you to understand whether women can climb as much as a man can. And you're living proof that, women can do a whole lot of stuff. So we're going to be right back after a short break, and we're going to find out how women across the world are climbing mountains.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another awesome week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And speaking of Instagram, Niharika Pandey joined Cyrus this week on Cyrus Says. Niharika is the strategic partner manager for Instagram India. Great conversation about the plans for Instagram in India. Karanjit Kaur joined the guys at Uncle Please Sit. Another really interesting conversation about the patriarchy. On Advertising is Dead, old friend Suchita Salwan showed up. Suchita is the founder of LBB. Great conversation she had with Varun. Definitely do check that out as well. Tanvi Lad, who is a nationally ranked badminton player, was on the Habit Code with Ashton Doctor. Great conversation. I would highly, highly recommend that. The Football Shootwall guys are back. They've been back for a few weeks, but definitely do check out their latest episode. Great conversation they had. On Aditi Surana's Absolutely Right, Manju Sara Rajan was the guest, and again, a great conversation was to be had over there. As always, great conversations all across the board. Check out some of the other stuff like Smile India and Know Your Kanun and All Things Policy. All of them had fresh episodes this week, but with that, let's get you back to your show.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Cliché. We're in conversation with a climber. I have a mountaineering climber with me, And she's going to talk about her journey of how she actually got into the profession, which is what we were talking about. And now in this section, we're going to talk about, are women really as strong as men to be able to climb mountains? And that question is for Prerna, somebody who's actually won so many awards, featured in so many films, and has actually climbed so many ranges. So, Prerna, tell us more about the anatomy of a woman. Is she strong enough to do something like climbing mountains?
Well, I feel that first off, the comparison between men and women in terms of effort is it's invalid to say that women can't make the same effort as men.
Absolutely.
I feel that that's what it really comes down to. It's obvious. It's obviously true that there are physiological differences, right? They are visible to us. They are visible to us in terms of how fat is stored differently in our bodies.
Right, or the hormones, for example.
Absolutely. I mean, the menstrual cycle plays a huge role in a girl and a woman's life, for so many years of her life, which affects performance a lot, as well as the mood and the psyche of a woman. But and apart from that, there's also the fact that women put on muscle mass in different ways. And, there's also a difference in, this difference in musculature, I feel, is what we kind of start calling weak strong. This person is not, this woman is not strong enough because she doesn't have the muscles like this other guy standing next to her. But when we climb, we look at the climb. We see two different bodied people, see two different looking, people climb the same thing in their own ways. And what it comes down to is that they got on top of it, is that they made the effort. So I feel that, so in climbing, it's often women come into the sport with a lot less upper body strength. And with a huge, expectation that that's all they're going to use. Except that we've forgotten that climbing is something that a little toddler does, crawling on all fours and climbing over the bed and everything.
Yeah.
It's really about rechanneling that ability of ours to move in that primal way. So climbing is all limbs. We use a lot of our hips. And so when women come into the sport, they have a lot of hesitation that they're not going to be good at it. And I've seen that this hesitation is more prevalent and more visible in women versus men who are also beginners and who come into the sport.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think that is the case?
It's definitely because women are more inclined to question their abilities. I feel like we've been given this atmosphere to constantly think twice whether we can do this or not, whether we can, we don't bring up girls encouraging them to take healthy risks. Chutki is taught by a mother to not climb trees, whereas Bhim goes around conquering demons, right? So it's a simple foundation where as young kids we are taught different things growing up as boys and growing up as girls, and the expectation to take, in climbing is all about analyzing and assessing risk and taking that risk, knowing how far you want to go. But even as a child, if I've been conditioned to always hold back from rolling in the mud or taking a big swing because I'll fall in that mud, whereas the boys around me are encouraged to do whatever the hell they want. They are in fact encouraged not to cry and to be bold. They're encouraged to be brave. Women, girls, on the other hand, are expected to be on the soft side, on this nurturing side. Even as little girls, we're taught to nurture.
So one of the articles I remember I wrote was around how footwear is different for little boys and girls. You'll see sandals, sometimes even heels for girls, and boys have running shoes. And you have a frock and you have these fancy frilly things for girls in parties, whereas you have boys that are running around with a pair of jeans. So it's restricting movement for girls, if you see, in that perspective. Also, you have the examples of a Mowgli and so many other creatures. A Spider-Man is a classic example, who building chadta hai. And if you look at if you look at the cartoon space, except for one Dora, I can't think of anyone who's really doing that. Obviously, now we have the Wonder Woman and all of that, but with kids, it's really missing. So thank you for highlighting that. I think that is a conditioning, and maybe that is why the resistance with girls that maybe I can't climb.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, absolutely. A lot of girls actually, like the men would be willing to try something and fall, and that's very confidently. Whereas women who come, and I've seen this firsthand from climbing in the gym, where there's a lot of young beginner people who come in. Women would try something with like a lot of hesitation in the first go, and then they would be extremely apologetic for not being able to complete something. Whereas there is this unabashedness in the men for trying something that they can fail at. So even for women, I feel like it's harder for them to even fail at something. First of all, it's hard already for them to try something that seems out of their limit, except that the guys don't see it like that. They don't, I'm not saying all of them, of course, but on the general, on an average, this is how it comes about.
This could also be, Prerna, I'm thinking, because this whole performance angle is so huge with men, right? Everything is around performance, and there's competition built in. And maybe that could be one of the reasons. So you've actually gone out and sort of smashed all these stereotypes and said, "Arey, climbing to matlab mere baaye haath ka khel hai," and you've actually climbed so many mountain ranges. Tell me something, and tell me honestly, how do people view you when they see you actually saying that this is a range that you're attempting to do? So how are you viewed as a climber? I'm sure now people know you well, but throughout the journey, or for people who don't know you, how do they view you?
I don't know. I think it depends on who we're talking about. Are we talking about people from my climbing community, or we're talking about people who don't know about climbing, general population?
Yeah, somebody who doesn't know you as a
they're
professional.
Astonished. They're like, oh my God, what just happened? A lot of times I get this, they're just like, oh my God, what a badass. It's completely astounding for them. And they've obviously never seen women in such a role before. It's as simple as that. They're intrigued by the way my body looks because I stand out, because I have muscles. That's not common in women. I'm also not petite bodied, and I am not like this lean athletic type that fits in the ideal, the glam body that we all aspire for, as much as I want that body. But I still stand out as this like stout Pahadan, and who's always like, and I find that there's always a comparison when I am complimented, and I know that they're all compliments, even though they're not put out in the best ways every time. But when a guy compliments me for the way I look, it's mostly in comparison to how I have bigger muscles than that guy. Whereas when I'm complimented by women a lot more, it's happened that I am appreciated for just being me. I'm just appreciated for having and for cultivating this body of mine, not in comparison to anything. And I feel that there is this more sensitized understanding and awareness when, when I don't know, women speak, and when they think. I mean, I definitely don't think it's the case all the time, but it happens a lot with me. Makes me think that, why do I have to be compared to somebody to be appreciated?
So, Prerna, I was kind of reading up on some of the articles written on you and some of your interviews, and you also said that people actually have sympathized with you, expected less out of you. You've been objectified and taken very casually. So it'll be nice if you can share an experience or two of where you've seen some of these things happening with you.
A simple example would be that if I'm climbing in a group of mixed folks, and a guy does, we're climbing the same route, and a guy does a route, and then and he's not able to do it. He's not able to finish it, and then I try the same thing, and I'm able to finish it. I feel the sense of intimidation, and I feel the sense of like disbelief sometimes. Not disbelief completely, but almost like I challenged a man because a girl did a route that he couldn't. I've definitely felt like that a lot of times. I've been told, "Arey, isne bhi kar liya, tu to kar hi lega." in a group of people where I'm way more experienced, where I'm way more experienced than this new person who has come in, but they choose to compare themselves to me simply because I'm a woman and therefore I must set a lower bar. I don't know, is that what they think? And that really infuriates me, but it's, I mean, it happens. And I don't always vocalize myself about it. I mean, I don't need to, obviously, but I just let, I just let, these are the moments where I just keep climbing because it's what speaks for me rather than me having to speak for myself. And the best thing I really can do to smash these objectifications and these expectations that are not as at par with men is to just continue climbing the best I can. And I really, that's been my focus to while I am talking about my experiences of being treated in a certain way, I still want to continue to push myself in this field because that is how I can raise the bar that's been set too low for me.
Beautiful. Yeah, just continue climbing. You're climbing so many more highs and you're setting examples. I think women need more role models like you. So this is people in your professional sphere, Prerna. What about the personal sphere? People around you, your relatives, your neighborhood, how do they view you? And I know that you've had very loving and supportive parents, but what about the community around you in your personal space? How do they view you?
I don't know if it's something to do with us being Pahadis, but I've just had a really, open-minded set of like family and relatives. Even, and I mean, we didn't really grow up doing a lot of spending a lot of time with relatives. Like my family, the four of us, my brother, my mom, dad, we did our own thing, sort of. And parents insisted that you need you keep the focus on you, and we were not really so fortunately for me, they weren't somebody who did things for the relatives, for society, more like society, and we never had this pressure on us to do things for the society. So we've been so treated with such a free mind that that it's kind of exuberated to even our closest relatives, and they know us and we know them, and there is this understanding, and obviously they're like, she needs to look this way in order to do these things, so they're absolutely excited for me and they love hearing about my adventures. My friends are super proud of me, even though they've made so much fun of me early on growing up, where they were like, what is happening? What is this phase that she's going through? And maybe she'll come out of it. All of that. But they know that I need to do this because it's my calling, and they're extremely supportive of it. In fact, a lot of my close friends are also formed in the climbing community because we've spent so much time with each other. We've climbed, trained together. We see each other day in and day out. And that is where there's also a very thick bond. That's where I found a lot of people who've made me become this person, who've taught me to keep challenging myself, and who I find enough, comfort in, that I can talk about anything. And you really need people like that around you, who are not afraid of having the hard conversations with you.
Yeah. Prerna, this show is called Beyond Cliché, and for sure you have a tribe that really thinks beyond the stereotypes and cliches. It is just so important to have the right kind of support system to be able to do something that is not the norm, because the norm is definitely different. I remember yesterday when we were talking on the phone call, you said there are people offering to lift your 5 kg bag, not knowing that you're climbing mountains. So, that's how women are viewed in some of these areas. We're in conversation with Prerna Dangi, the climber, mountaineer, and we're going to be back right after this short break.
Remember the last vacation you took? What about the one you took 3 years ago? Okay, how much do you really remember? It's a question I've asked myself often over a decade of traveling the world. Hey, I'm Utsav, and I do not travel the world for a living. I have a full-time job and responsibilities, but I have made traveling the world a priority. Priority enough that I negotiate extra leave in my job contracts obsessively track my frequent flyer miles, and I'm willing to take off at the sight of a cheap ticket. Yes, I am cheap. I've lived and worked in 3 countries. I understand human behavior for a living. And these experiences have given me unique insights into places, people, and culture. With over a decade of travel behind me, I increasingly realized one thing: that we cannot see everything. So whatever we see, we must see deeply. Because as the film of memory decays, the imprints which will stand the test of time are the ones felt by the immersion of the senses, not by fleeting encounters with them. Postcards from Nowhere is an immersion into the world of slow travel, one story at a time. Tune in every Thursday on the IVM Podcasts app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Cliché. This is your host Indostal, and today we have a climber called Prerna Dangi in the show, and she's been talking to us about some really cool stuff. वैसे मेरे शो पे ऐसी बातें होती नहीं है, but we've been talking about झाड़ पे चढ़ना और पहाड़ों से कूदना नहीं चढ़ना, and now we're going to talk about some things related to women in climbing, right? So I have with me someone in the studio who's actually climbed both rock and ice mountains, and she's kind of proved her mettle there. And then she's also started something called Climb Like a Woman, a community called Claw. And this is for women climbers. So Prerna, you're the organizer and mentor for Claw, which is Climb Like a Woman. And from what I understand is this is a group of women who climb. Tell us more about this initiative.
Yeah, it started in 2018 when I feel like we were very few women, we still are very few women who are dedicatedly rock climbing in India. And that means that we take our own initiatives and we go on our own expeditions, on our own climbs, etc. So that dearth of other women who could, who we can climb with was very prevalent, is very prevalent. And at a certain point, few of us met some other, women. Me, my partner Vrinda met another climber from Bangalore called Gauri and Lekha. And in 2018, Gauri sent across a message to all of us that, hey, we should do an event where it's all women and we can, share our knowledge of climbing with them. And that way we can get more women to climb. And it was on point. It was needed at that moment. It was something that I had wanted to personally do for a very long time, which was to kind of create a community of women. Because it was, since that time when I finally realized there's such few women in this, and that I realized that, wow, I don't actually have role models, and I don't want that to happen for the generation after me, right? And for that, you need to create that kind of change in the environment. And that's how it came about. It was curated in 2 months, and in December 2018, we had the first Climb Like a Woman event, which was a 5-day event where we introduced 35 women to rock climbing, to bouldering in Hampi, which is down south in North Karnataka. A lot of people assume about Hampi that it's this hippie town and that's it. But when you cross the river and you see the boulders, a bunch of us crazy heads actually go there just for the boulders. And we just go there to climb. It's called bouldering when you climb a boulder. So you don't use a rope in that. And that's what the idea was, to introduce women into climbing as a means of furthering their limits, as a means of furthering their minds and extending, the understanding of what's possible. Because really, this is what we experienced. And what our main vision with Claw is that we want to create this community that feels empowered, a community of women that feels empowered through climbing, through the outdoors. Because, it's in the in the outdoors where we can really challenge ourselves and we can imbibe whatever we have learned, that challenge to our regular lives. And that helps us break the social stigmas and barriers that we constantly face.
Absolutely.
So by providing this support, by providing accessibility, by providing a safe space for women to be themselves, to not be constantly compared, to not feel like they're being judged, to not feel like they're being, where they feel unsafe, because a lot of places where one goes climbing are not safe in India because they're all remote corners. They'll be sometimes in, outskirts. And it's simple fact in India that a lot of places are not safe for women, right? Whether it's day or night. So the idea was to really just break down all of these obstacles and give the opportunity to learn, to try out something like climbing unhinged. And that's something that maybe some of us felt like we didn't have. And that's exactly why we wanted to provide that.
That's a very, very progressive.
By that I mean that a few of us had to literally claw our way up, and claw our way up to be able to do these things. Like, of course, there were hurdles. Of course, I mean, there's so much that, one gets accustomed to it. The mind doesn't remember so much anymore. The mind only remembers what's been most hurtful, etc. And we also want to move on. But not everybody will be able to claw their way out of these situations. And why should they? Why should a woman have to face unsolicited comments all the time about her body, about her gestures, about whether she smiles or not, how she does her hair, everything? It's like, I feel like the woman's body is, is just so public. It's not personal at all. The whole world cares about what you do with it, and feels completely free to comment on it. And that is a big factor that causes less women to take that step outside of their comfort zone. Log kya kahenge? How will I be seen by people? And it's really like, when we climb, there's it's a very impact based sport. It's body heavy, and that means that you're constantly moving your body in different ways in order to be able to complete a move. So it kind of, it heals you almost. It's so powerful, that movement. When you do it, imagine feeling as a 27-year-old woman, feeling like you're moving like a 7-year-old child. You forget that you are a woman. You forget that you are any different from anybody else. You kind of lose yourself in this simplistic but still this microscopic movement and the touch that you have with the rock. And it's really that moment of losing your senses and yet finding them in this movement, which creates this magical feeling inside you that makes you want to do it again, that makes you forget everything else and just completely focus on the task in front of you. And then you come out of that moment and you're like, I want to get back there, because I am capable when I am there. I am capable and I am in control when I am in that place. And I'm not afraid of falling. Even if I'm afraid of falling, I will be able to get over this fear. There are all of these emotional changes that climbing brings about. And we want to use climbing as a tool for positive change in the society to break this barrier. I mean, I've thought so many times about how I can make a difference. And it sits so heavy on my shoulders. I feel guilty and I feel really like, can I even make a change? Can I even do something? I mean, because, you see every day there's rape cases. There's like the gravity of the situation in India is so intense that you feel like anything you do is not even a drop in the ocean. But through climbing, I feel like I've found, and all of us at Claw, and I know even a lot of guys who've supported us, we found this way to make that drop in the ocean count.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I think it's a little more than the drop in the ocean, because this one initiative is actually covering so many dimensions. Like you said, there's a dimension of healing. There's this dimension of being in charge of my body, feeling free, feeling liberated, and also having a sense of community, of not being judged, and, sort of just holding on to the next step, ensuring that I make it all the way to the top. An emotional Prerna with us in the studio. I can sort of see her right now. And I think this is primarily because she's just so passionate about it. And like she said, we don't have too many women role models. Like she said, I didn't have it, and I would like to create it for the generations after me. So, talking about women role models in this space. So, you're somebody that's attempted Denali in Alaska. My question to you is, how many women are actually there in the ice climbing space? Is that a space where you find women, and women in India? Is that even a space women are into?
Um, I well, interesting. There's to answer your question, there aren't any women who, let's say, are climbing. I climb lead on ice. I'm able to lead climb on ice, and that means that there's no rope above me. It's a little technical, and I don't want to get into that. But eh, I at this moment there aren't any women in India who can climb ice at the same level,
So
except that
you're so
there's
you're
also
just
not
being
enough men.
modest. So you're just being modest. You
No,
can
no,
say that I am
really,
the only one. I am the only one climbing ice right now. Is that so?
I am the only one climbing ice right now. I'm not proud of it. I mean, I'm proud of my climbing personally, objectively, my of being able to physically ascend these things. But am I proud of being like the only girl out there? I don't think so. I mean, I wish there were more women around me, right? Of course, I wish, but I also wish there were more. There are also not many men because um, ice climbing, like if climbing is an industry, ice climbing is like we're just starting to talk about it in the country right now. It's only just begun. I mean, internationally, it's a very popular extreme sport, but also because they started much before us. And while in India, ice climbing is, the kind of revolution. It's a period where this revolution is happening, where there are more seekers of this sport, and I'm one of them. And I'm one of the few who are starting this kind of a revolution. So there's just not enough people in ice climbing, and I feel like, I mean, I don't know, it's not about modesty, but like for me, it comes down to the pure pursuit uh, of this strange movement. The way it makes me feel, it's like dancing on different um, like surfaces. Sometimes it's rock, sometimes it's ice, frozen waterfall, and sometimes it's a mountain, which is, I would say, like the hardest ordeal of it all. Because when you're climbing a mountain, it's more of a survival thing. Whereas in rock and ice, we tone that down a bit. It's about that particular pitch that you're climbing. It's less, it's short lived. The commitment is less, but the intensity is more. So, all of these, it's this crazy rendition of risk and physical effort that really drives me towards extreme, sports of climbing and ice climbing. It's really not like ice climbing, especially. I'm not, when climbing, I was thinking that, oh yeah, I'm the only girl. Sometimes I think that I'm the only girl who did this or did that. But I've like walked away from that thinking long time back, and I just want, like, I just want to get more people into it. I also want to get better. I don't want to be like, okay, I mean, you look at my resume, you're like, you've climbed this. Yeah, but in my head, it's not, it's great, but I want to get more. I want to do more. So you know, it's satisfying in the moment, but it's not like satisfying like, जैसे मेरा पेट भर गया और मैं खुश हूँ अब.
No, no, I'm sure
That's
आपको
the
अभी बहुत
beauty of
सारे पहाड़
climbing.
चढ़ने हैं. आपको literally
That's
बहुत
the
सीढ़ियाँ,
yeah,
बहुत पहाड़ चढ़ने
that's
हैं.
the beauty of climbing.
No, so why we spoke
That
about
you
ice climbing is normally ये भी एक cliche होता है that a man usually removes his jacket and gives it to a woman on a cold winter night. you know, and औरतों को protect किया जाता है with cold. तो ऐसा कुछ है क्या कि औरतों को ज्यादा ठंडी लगती है? आपने तो ice climbing किया है, so you can tell us more.
the best part about like that's it's damn funny and it's all like macho culture, but when you're out in the mountains, nobody gives a shit. You have to survive first on your own, and then you can help somebody else out. Nobody's going to remove their jacket. I mean, we do associate heroism to climbing and mountaineering a lot. There is this aspect, and that's why this mountaineering and climbing are often romanticized. Like, for a layman, it is a huge deal, right? That this person does something that's so crazy on a daily basis. And wow, they must be such an amazing person, such a powerful and like willing and determined and all of these fancy words. Except I don't know. I don't really feel like that all the time. In fact, I'm just like a regular girl. I watch Netflix more than I need to sometimes, and I eat intuitively. And sometimes I'm doing the number of push-ups and pull-ups that I need to be doing, and a lot of times I'm not. So what climbing has taught me is that, uh, you know, what I look like and what I'm like. We think, oh, what does a climber look like? And very few people would imagine me. And that's similarly, I've also felt
not only
like
look like खाते क्या हैं, उनका routine क्या होता है,
yeah, all
ये
of
normal
this.
नहीं है.
Absolutely.
हाँ, right.
Yeah, so I'm not a heroine at all. I'm a drama queen sometimes, but I'm definitely not a heroine. I don't feel like that, and that's because it's such a personal pursuit. Like all of you hear all the praise because people don't know what this field is about, and it's great. It's inspiring. I get it, but when I'm on the mountain, what's going through my mind is so personal and intimate, and at that moment, I'm not thinking about doing this for the praise or the same people. I'm not thinking that I'm answerable to all the people who are waiting for me back there. I am at max only answerable to my mother, who is definitely waiting for me out there with sleepless nights. But most importantly, what the mountains and what the outdoor teaches us is that, you're doing it for you, because you're fighting with only one person, and that's you. That's the only fight you need to win. Or forget winning. If you're actually you realize that, yeah, I need to get better than my older version, you're on the right track. That's what mountaineering teaches you again and again and again. And that's why I can't stop myself from doing it.
Yeah, I think I really like that thought that it's helping you be a better version of yourself than what you were before with every mountain that you climb. And that's such a powerful thought. Prerna, it's been a lovely conversation with you. I think we've spoken extensively about so many stereotypes around women in climbing. What would be your message to someone listening to this show, like a woman who's listening to this show and would have at some point in time thought about climbing, either for the joy of it or a profession? What's your message to her?
My message would be simply to go for it. I mean, think about why. If you already thought about it, just go for it. I waited a lot of times. Actually, I did not wait for anybody who told me that they would come with me on that trip, on this trip. And I just kept going, and I just found people who wanted to do what I wanted to do. And that's the time where I was maybe, say, traveling solo. And it was just that I wanted to do it. So if you know that you want to try it, you need to like thode haath pair marne padenge. Find some people who want to do it as well, and get involved. And don't wait. I would really say that I know it's hard, especially for women. It's not easy to just step out. It's not easy to convince your parents to let you stay out, for a little while longer, right? I have been driving the whole of Delhi, going from South Delhi to my college in North Delhi, then to IMF in South Delhi, and all the way back, 50 kilometers every day. But I was, not everybody can do that. I also realized that. And not everybody can even climb as much, because it is a privileged sport, right? You need to have the kind of support that I had when I was in college from my parents' side. And you need to have the recreational income to be able to do it. It's not something that that you should feel obligated to do. If you need to want to climb, and if you really want it, you will eventually make it happen. Because I feel like this about the hesitation, if you ever like, I feel that if there is the sense of, can I do it, but like all of the fun things are actually start off on a hard note, and you don't know if you can do it until you try it. So cut yourself slack and give yourself the opportunity to try. And lastly, I would just say that don't be afraid of failure. I feel that failure is where growth happens.
Absolutely.
Outside of your comfort zone is where growth happens. And even if not for the growth, do it just for fun.
Yeah. And if you don't know how to go about it, Google Claw and Prerna Dangi, and you'd probably find a tribe of women wanting to welcome you with open arms. So, Prerna, if people have to sort of reach out to you or find out more about you, can you tell us where to find you on social media?
Absolutely. I am the Pahadi Girl on Instagram, or you can type in Prerna Dangi. There's not a lot, except maybe a TikTok star who sings, but that will not be me, and you will know it. We also have the Claw Instagram, which is Climb Like a Woman. And if you want to go ice climbing, there is Piti Dhar, which is our ice climbing festival page. All of these are also on my Instagram on the links in the bio, so you can find most of the threads there.
Great, fantastic. I'm sure there'll be a lot of women that are inspired to sort of join this, to reach out to you. If you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Instagram, Almas _1111. I'm also on Facebook by the same name. On Twitter, it's Almas 11. Today, we've had an uphill conversation with a climber, Prerna Dangi, who's given us a lot of inspiration. I think we've spoken extensively about so many things we rarely talk about, right? Right from the time how boys and girls are conditioned and trained to not even talk about climbing. And if there is a little bit of climbing introduction, that happens only to boys. I think it's high time we change the narrative. And I'm really glad that there are people like Prerna that are setting out to be role models to do exactly that for us. Coming back to the show, please go to www.change.org/papapampers2. Please to support my petition. I'm asking a leading diaper company to change a gender stereotypical narrative of only mothers changing diapers. We need to get the fathers on the diaper cover as well. I'm going to be back in the show next Thursday with yet another inspirational guest who's moved beyond Cliché. I'm going to say bye to Prerna here, who's joined us for a good, cool conversation. Prerna, you have a safe and a good trip this weekend, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Almas, for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Take care, and bye-bye. I will see you next week. Ta-da. Stay safe, stay happy.
Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Don Bradman, and now Cyrus Brocha. Okay, probably not in the right company. I mean, Don Bradman is Australian. But it's called Cyrus Says, a wonderful show about everything. Find the show on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
How many times have you motivated yourself to improve your sleep, or lose weight, or be more productive? How many times have you failed? Hi, my name is Ashton Doctor. Tune into my show, The Habit Coach Podcast, where we focus on creating small, tiny habits to improve your life instead of those big, impossible tasks. So make listening to me a habit every Monday, Wednesday and Friday on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com or on your favorite podcasting app.